He worked for P. Diddy for 10 years, and then he vanished without a trace. The last time anyone saw Marcus Calloway alive, he was leaving a high-rise building in Manhattan at 2:17 a.m., shoulders hunched against the December cold, his breath visible, in plumes beneath the streetlights. Security footage showed him checking his phone, glancing over his shoulder twice, then disappearing into the night. That was February 12, 2019. No credit card transactions, no phone calls, no social media posts. Since a man who spent a decade in the inner circle of one of music's most powerful figures had simply evaporated into thin air. But the story of Marcus Calloway's disappearance began long before that cold winter night. In the summer of 2009, Marcus was just another hungry kid from Philadelphia with dreams bigger than his bank account. 22 years old, community college dropout, but with an eye for detail and a willingness to work harder than anyone else in the room. He had managed to land an interview for an entry-level position at Bad Boy Entertainment through his cousin, who worked security at a New York club frequented by the label's executives. I remember my hands were shaking so bad I spilled coffee all over my only decent shirt right before walking in, Marcus told his sister Tanya during a rare visit home for Thanksgiving in 2015. But Mr. Combs, P. Diddy, he just laughed and said anyone nervous enough to ruin their interview, clothes probably cared enough to give a damn about the job. That first meeting changed everything. Sean P. Diddy Combs saw something in the eager young man that others had missed. Within months, Marcus had moved from running errands to becoming an indispensable personal assistant, managing schedules, coordinating with security teams, and eventually handling sensitive business affairs. His meteoric rise within Diddy's organization wasn't lost on those who had known him before. It was like watching someone get swallowed by a tidal wave, Marcus's mother, Eleanor Calloway, said, from the worn sofa in her Philadelphia row home, her eyes clouded with cataracts and grief, fixed on a point somewhere beyond the living room wall. At first, all that glitter looked like gold to him. The private jets, the celebrities, the parties that never seemed to end. But my boy changed. Each time I saw him, there was less of the Marcus I raised and more of someone else. The transformation was gradual but unmistakable. The wide-eyed assistant became the stone-faced gatekeeper. By 2014, Marcus had become Diddy's right hand, the man who said no, so the boss didn't have to, who made problems disappear before they reached the mogul's radar. His salary had multiplied tenfold, but the hours and demands had grown exponentially. Footage from a 2016 after-party shows Marcus in the background of nearly every shot, earpiece in place, eyes constantly scanning the room, phone perpetually in hand. He never drinks, never dances, never fully relaxes. In one telling moment, when a glass shatters across the room, every other head turns toward the sound while Marcus's eyes immediately find Diddy, assessing for threats. "He was the most loyal person I've ever met," said Jai Williams, a former Bad Boy Records producer who worked closely with both men. Too loyal, maybe. The things he did for Diddy. Man, some of that stuff would keep a normal person up at night. Williams paused, reconsidering his words before continuing more carefully. "Look, in this industry, there's always a gap between the public image and what happens behind closed doors. That gap can swallow people whole." The first crack in Marcus's perfect facade appeared in late 2017. During a label event in Miami, Marcus was seen arguing heatedly with Diddy on the balcony of a hotel suite, something unprecedented in their professional relationship. Witnesses described seeing Marcus gesturing emphatically, shaking his head repeatedly while Diddy placed a hand on his shoulder in what appeared to be a calming gesture. 3 days later, Marcus called his sister at 3:42 a.m., the timestamp burned, into her phone's call history, a digital artifact she now clings to as evidence her brother once existed. "He was scared, Tanya. I've never heard my brother sound like that," she recalled, fingers absently tracing the outline of her phone case. "He said he'd seen something he wasn't supposed to see. He kept saying, 'I'm in too deep now, there's no way out.' I told him to come home, that whatever it was couldn't be worth his peace of mind. He laughed, but it wasn't my brother's laugh. He said, 'Some bridges you can't uncross.'" What Marcus had seen remains unknown. The following morning, he was back at Diddy's side at a charity event. his expression betraying nothing of the previous night's distress. But those closest to him noted subtle changes. He began transferring small amounts of money to his mother's account, updated his will, and reconnected with childhood friends he'd long neglected. "He called me out of the blue," said Aaron Michaels, who had grown up with Marcus in Philadelphia. "We hadn't really talked in years, but suddenly he wanted to get together. We met at this little diner in Jersey, miles from anywhere fancy. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't really slept in months. During that meeting, Marcus asked strange questions about disappearing, about starting over someplace new. He wanted to know if Aaron thought someone could vanish completely in the digital age. Aaron thought his old friend was planning some elaborate vacation, maybe dealing with burnout from his high-pressure job. I joked about it, said something about witness protection," Aaron remembered. Marcus didn't laugh. He just said, "Sometimes the only way to save yourself is to become someone else." I should have listened better. I should have heard what he wasn't saying. In December 2018, 2 months before his disappearance, Marcus returned to Philadelphia for his mother's birthday. Security camera footage from her building's lobby shows him arriving with an armful of gifts, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. For 3 days, he barely touched his phone, unheard of for someone in his position. "He sat at my kitchen table like he used to as a boy," Eleanor said, tears finally breaking through her stoic demeanor. "He looked at everything like he was trying to memorize it. The chipped mug he always used, the view from my window, even that awful wallpaper I've been meaning to replace for 15 years. When he left, he hugged me so tight I could hardly breathe. He said, 'I love you, Mama. No matter what happens, please remember that.' Those would be the last words Marcus ever spoke to his mother." In the weeks leading up to his disappearance, Marcus's behavior grew increasingly erratic. Hotel security. Footage from various cities shows him pacing hallways at odd hours. Financial records indicate he withdrew nearly $60,000 in cash across multiple transactions, just under the reporting threshold. He purchased burner phones, paid 6 months' rent in advance on a storage unit in Queens under a fake name, and scheduled, then canceled, a flight to Belize. The night of February 11, 2019, Marcus attended a private industry event with Diddy at a Manhattan penthouse. Witnesses later told investigators that nothing seemed amiss. Marcus was his usual efficient self, coordinating with security, managing the guest list, keeping his boss's champagne glass filled. Around 1:30 a.m., according to statements, Diddy pulled Marcus aside for a private conversation. No one overheard what was said, but observers noted that Marcus nodded repeatedly, his expression giving nothing away. 20 minutes later, he excused himself, saying he needed to make a call. Security cameras show him taking the elevator down to the ground floor, walking briskly through the lobby and exiting the building. That grainy night vision footage, Marcus looking over his shoulder before disappearing from frame, is the last confirmed sighting of him. When questioned later, Diddy expressed shock and concern. "Marcus was family to me," he told investigators. 10 years, day in and day out. No one worked harder or was more loyal. I'm devastated, and I'm praying for his safe return." The official investigation stalled almost immediately. Marcus's phone was found in a trash can 3 blocks from the building. His apartment showed no signs of a struggle. In fact, it was immaculately clean, as if he'd known he wouldn't be returning. His passport was gone, along with a small suitcase and approximately $10,000 from his safe. Investigators initially labeled it a voluntary disappearance. But then came the first turning point that transformed a missing person case into something more sinister. 2 weeks after Marcus vanished, a maintenance worker discovered a laptop hidden in the ceiling tiles of the men's bathroom at Bad Boy Entertainment's New York offices. The computer was password protected, but a post-it note stuck to the back simply read, "Insurance." Digital forensics experts eventually accessed the device to discover hundreds of audio recordings, conversations Marcus had secretly documented over his final 2 years working for Diddy. Most were mundane business discussions, but several contained troubling references to financial irregularities, possible blackmail situations, and parties where no one should bring their phones. There's a difference between legal trouble and the kind of trouble that makes a man vanish himself, said Detective Sandra Perez, who was assigned to the case before being unexpectedly transferred 6 months into the investigation. Speaking off the record, her frustration was palpable. We weren't just looking for a missing person anymore. We were looking for someone who had good reason to be afraid. The second turning point came in the form of Alicia Ramsey, a model who had attended numerous events hosted by Diddy between 2016 and 2018. Initially reluctant to speak with investigators, she eventually came forward with a chilling account. There was a party in the Hamptons in July 2018, she stated in a sworn affidavit. I overheard Marcus arguing with someone on the phone. He was saying that he couldn't keep covering up something, that eventually someone's going to talk. When he saw me, he looked terrified. Later that night, he found me and apologized. He said if I ever felt unsafe, I should contact him directly. He gave me a number that wasn't his regular cell. I never used it, but I always remembered how scared he looked. The investigation took a darker turn when financial journalists uncovered a series of shell companies linked to both Diddy and Marcus. Transactions between these entities suggested potential money laundering operations involving millions of dollars. More disturbingly, large transfers were made from these accounts in the days immediately following Marcus's disappearance. It's the timing that's suspicious, explained financial crimes expert Rajiv Mehta, who reviewed the public records. You have these dormant shell companies suddenly moving huge sums right after a key person vanishes. In my experience, that's rarely coincidental. Despite mounting circumstantial evidence, the case against Diddy remained tenuous. The music mogul maintained his innocence, expressing continued concern for his longtime assistant's welfare and offering a $250,000 reward for information leading to Marcus's safe return. His legal team dismissed the suspicious financial activities as standard practice in the entertainment industry and suggested that Marcus might have embezzled funds before fleeing. The most heartbreaking moment of injustice came when Marcus's family attempted to access his financial accounts to maintain the search efforts. They discovered that just days after his disappearance, someone had used Marcus's passwords to transfer nearly all his assets to offshore accounts. With no body and no concrete evidence of foul play, insurance wouldn't pay out death benefits. His mother faced foreclosure on the home Marcus had helped her purchase. They didn't just take my son, Eleanor said during a rare public statement. They're trying to erase that he ever existed. But I know my boy. And whatever he got himself into, whatever he saw, he was a good man caught in something bigger than himself. The public largely forgot about Marcus Calloway as months stretched into years. The music industry moved on. Diddy continued to expand, his business empire, weathering the brief storm of suspicion with minimal damage to his reputation. Marcus became just another unsolved mystery, another hashtag that trended briefly before fading away. But in a small apartment in Philadelphia, Tanya Calloway refused to let her brother's story die. Starting with just a Facebook page and her unwavering determination, she built a network of amateur sleuths, sympathetic journalists, and former employees willing to speak anonymously about the culture of silence surrounding Diddy's organization. Marcus used to tell me that in the music industry, loyalty flows upward but consequences flow downward, Tanya explained, as she sifted through boxes of documents she'd collected. The people at the top are insulated while those beneath them take the falls. I think my brother was tired of watching people get hurt while he helped keep the machine running. 3 years after Marcus vanished, a moment of redemption and hope emerged from an unexpected source. A former security contractor who had worked briefly with Diddy's team came forward with security footage from a private airstrip in New Jersey. The grainy video dated February 12, 2019, hours after Marcus was last seen in Manhattan, showed a hooded figure bearing a striking resemblance to Marcus boarding a private plane registered to a company, later linked to one of Diddy's international business partners. While not definitive proof of his fate, the footage reignited interest in the case. Several former Bad Boy employees, emboldened by the new evidence, began speaking about a culture of intimidation and secrets they had witnessed. 3 separate individuals mentioned Marcus's growing discomfort in the months before his disappearance. He kept saying he was trapped, one former colleague revealed. That he'd seen the operation from the inside for too long to ever truly get out. I think he knew too much. Not just about Diddy, but about connections to people much more dangerous. The case remains officially open, with Marcus Calloway still listed as a missing person. His social security number hasn't been used. His distinctive tattoo, a phoenix rising from ashes on his right shoulder, hasn't been identified on any John Doe. It's as if he truly did manage to disappear completely, whether by choice or by force remains the haunting question. I believe my brother is still alive, Tanya insists, though the tremor in her voice betrays her uncertainty. Marcus was always the smartest person in any room. If anyone could find a way to disappear and start over, it would be him. I have to believe he's out there somewhere safe, maybe watching us, still searching for him. In Eleanor Calloway's living room sits a small shrine, photos of her son from childhood through his rise to success, candles that she lights each night, and the last birthday card he gave her with its simple message, "To many more years together, Mama, I promise." The story of Marcus Calloway, the man who stood in the shadow of a music mogul for a decade before vanishing without a trace, serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of power, loyalty, and secrets. In an industry built on image and influence, what happens to those who see behind the curtain? What becomes of the keepers of secrets when they decide they can no longer bear the weight? As investigations into financial improprieties connected to Diddy's empire continue, as new witnesses find the courage to speak out about what they witnessed during those years, perhaps the full truth of Marcus Calloway's fate will eventually come to light. Until then, his absence speaks volumes about the darkness that sometimes lurks beneath the glittering surface of fame. For Marcus's family, for the handful of journalists still pursuing leads, and for anyone who values truth over power, one question remains. In a world where wealth and influence can seemingly bend reality itself, can justice ever truly be served? If this story shocked you, subscribe, because the next one is even more incredible.